Did you know that plastic surgery was practiced in ancient India since 600 BC? In fact, the method of rhinoplasty was picked up by England from India during the 1800s, and it came to be known as the Indian method of rhinoplasty. This is the third video in the series where we talk about medical science in ancient India. In the first video, we discussed the antiquity and origin of medical science in ancient India. And in the second video, we tried to reconstruct the system and infrastructure of medical knowledge in the ancient India. In this video, we will talk about the achievements of ancient Indian medicine and its influence on the cultures all around the world and also its influence on modern medicine. So stay tuned for this video. The earliest available texts which form the foundation of ancient Indian medicine are the Charaka Samhita of Charaka, which is dated to 3rd century BC, and the Sushruta Samhita of Sushruta, which is dated to 6th century BC. While Sushruta Samhita deals with surgical procedures, the Charaka Samhita talks about general medicine. Charaka Samhita mentions causes, symptoms, and treatments of more than 40 diseases, such as epilepsy, asthma, hemorrhoids, and so on. It also explains the theory of Ayurveda and deals with other health aspects, such as daily routines, diets, and exercise. Shushruta mentions 125 surgical instruments and 300 surgical procedures. Sushruta Samhita contains the earliest references for the cure of leprosy, lithiasis or the formation of stones, and angina pectoris, which is a heart disease caused due to insufficient flow of blood to the heart. Sushruta also talks about dead bodies being used to study and understand the human anatomy. Sushruta suggests several innovative ways to perform various surgeries. He suggests using of horsehair as teaching material. Black carpenter ants were used to close incisions in soft tissues. For example, during intestinal surgery, Sushruta suggests to bring the two ends of the intestine together and firmly press them. And then black ants were introduced to grip both the ends with their claws. And the bodies of the ants were removed and then the area was stitched up. Leeches were used to suck pus and blood in case of boils, tumors, or other similar conditions. Leeches could also be used when bleeding was an issue and surgery could not be done. Sushruta writes about different kinds of leeches and suggests that only some kinds of leeches could be used for surgical purposes. He also writes in details how leeches should be caught, preserved, and used. It was in 2004 that the use of leeches was permitted in America for certain procedures. Today, the use of leeches by surgeons is quite popular worldwide. In fact, studies have shown that leech therapy has a lot of advantages compared to the conventional method. For example, leech therapy has no side effects, and the saliva of leeches also has anti clotting properties. The saliva also has anesthetic and pain relieving properties. Sushruta writes about as many as 300 surgical procedures in Sushruta Samhita. He mentions complex surgical procedures such as incision of tumors, removal of hernia, amputation, Caesarian section, cataract surgery, and plastic surgery. Caesarian section is a complex surgery for the delivery of a child by cutting open the lower abdomen of the mother when normal delivery is complicated. We find a mention of Caesarian section from the life of Chandragupta Maurya. When Chandragupta Maurya became king, Chanakya used to make small amount of poison in his food to make him immune to the poison. One day, Chandragupta affectionately fed his pregnant wife the same food, which led to her death. However, Chanakya was able to save the baby by cutting open the belly of the mother. Thus, Bindusar was born. Sushruta Samhita also contains the earliest reference for cataract surgery. He explains in detail in which a curved needle is used to push the opaque phlegmatic matter in the eye out of the way of vision. After the surgery, the eye is sprinkled with milk and clarified butter. We find several references of milk, ghee, and butter being used to treat wounds. Plastic surgery too was well known in ancient India. Plastic surgery does not involve any plastic, but the use of live skin from thigh, cheek, abdomen, or forehead is used to repair the damaged skin from any other part of the body. The earliest reference of plastic surgery is mentioned in the Ramayana. When Lakshman had cut the nose of Shurpanakha, Ravan has asked the surgeon in his kingdom to fix it. This process remained unknown to England up to the late 18th century. How England learned this procedure from India involves another interesting story. In 1794, a British surgeon who was also a member of the medical board at Madras wrote a letter to the editor of the Gentleman's Magazine, a famous magazine from England. The letter was published in the magazine and took the entire Britain by storm. It describes the story of a bullock cart driver whose nose and one of the arms was cut off by the army of Tipu Sultan during a war. After 1 year, he got his nose repaired by a brickmaker near Pune. It was on October 23rd, 1814, that this operation was performed in England for the first time on a military officer who had lost his nose in a war against Napoleon. This method came to be known as the Indian method of rhinoplasty. As we all know, neem and turmeric are integral part of every Indian household. Neem is used for the treatment of cold and flu, skin diseases, and also in dental care, while turmeric is one of the most popular spices across Indian kitchen. Turmeric is also used as a cosmetic and can also be used for the treatment of wounds. The benefits of these two herbs are traditional knowledge common all across India. In 1994, an American company called W.R. Grace and the US Department of Agriculture applied and received a patent for the method of controlling fungi in plants using neem oil. Again, in 1995, another patent was granted to two people from the University of Mississippi Medical Center for using turmeric for healing wounds. Both these patents were disputed by the government of India, claiming that this was a prior knowledge in India. Sanskrit texts were produced as evidence, and finally, both the patents were revoked. Shampoo too is India's gift to the world. The word shampoo originated in 1762 from the Hindi word shampoo. The early colonial traders of India introduced the skill in Europe on their return, and it came to be known as shampoo. The earliest evidence of shampoo usage in India dates back to 2700 BC at an Indus Valley site in Banawali of Haryana. In Banawali, traces of a mixture of amla, shikakai, and soap nuts have been found. Soap nuts have been referred in Sanskrit as kasuna, and its fruit pulp would produce lather or fenaka, which would leave the hairs soft and shiny. In 1890, Hamilton Bower, a British lieutenant, came across some Sanskrit manuscripts buried in a Buddhist stupa in China. These manuscripts came to be known as Bower's manuscript or Yeshomitra manuscript. It has been dated to the Gupta era of 5th to 6th century and contains medical knowledge in common with the ancient medical treatises of Sushruta and Charaka. Sun Simiao was a physician of the Tang dynasty in China during the 7th century. He is popularly known as China's king of medicine. His writings contain the Chinese version of the Hippocratic Oath that Chinese doctors are still administered today. He mentions about the life of the legendary Indian physician Jivaka and attributes several medical formulations to him, such as Jivaka's soup, Jivaka's ball for thousand illness, and so on. He is also credited to have introduced Chan or Dhyan meditation and yoga in China. He also talks about a particular massage technique and calls it the Brahmin's technique. Several famous Chinese scholars during the 7th and 8th century record in their works a treatment for beriberi and call it the Brahmin's prescription. Khusro the emperor of Persia during the 6th century, had sent his wazir Barso to India in search of the Sanjeevani herb. Harun al-Rashid, the Caliph of Arabia during the late 8th century, was cured from a chronic illness by Manka, a physician from India who was called to Baghdad after his personal physicians had failed. Al-Baruni, a famous traveler who visited India during the 11th century, mentions the availability of an Arabic translation of Charaka Samhita in the Middle East. These instances tell us that ancient Indian medicine had significant influence on cultures all across the world, such as ancient Persia, Arabia, China, and Europe. Such was the medical prowess of ancient Indians that Said al-Andalusi, the Spanish scholar from 11th century, had said the Hindus have surpassed all the people in their knowledge of medicine. It would not be wrong to say that Indians were leading in this field. So, what happened? How did we reach the current status? And what is the status of ancient Indian medicine or Ayurveda in today's world? Due to repeated invasions, India had lost all its ancient universities by the 13th century, and with them, lost a lot of its ancient knowledge. This would have definitely weakened the institutional structure and system. However, fast forward to 17th to mid 18th century. India had physicians with diverse backgrounds. There were the Vedas and the Hakims who practiced Ayurveda and Unani respectively. There were also the European physicians who started arriving in India from the 16th century under the employment of the European trading companies. During the initial years of interaction, there was a mutual respect. The European physicians were willing to learn from the Indian physicians. Until the 17th century, European medicine was not well developed and relied heavily on the Arabian sources, which in turn was influenced by Indian medicine. The work of Avicenna, a famous Arabic scholar, was being taught in Europe since 12th century till 17th century. However, in the early 1820s, the British had set up several institutions to teach Indians both Western and Indian medicine. However, the period after 1820s saw rapid advancement in Western medical science. Advances in Western technology shook the foundations of Orientalism or the belief that the East had something significant to teach the West. They began believing in the superiority of Western rational thought and began blaming India's poverty on the stagnation of scientific thinking. Slowly, all support towards Indian medical system stopped. The institutes set up in 1822, that is the NMI, was abolished by 1835. Western educated Indians slowly started to believe in the Western medicine and began considering it a superior form of knowledge. Thus, the Hakims and Vaidyas lost state support and their social status gradually declined. The Indian government did take steps to revive the ancient traditions after independence. However, a lot is still left to be done to restore the ancient Indian medicine to its former glory. In our next video, we will talk in detail about the secrets and science of Ayurveda. Meanwhile, feel free to check out our previous video on the history and origins of Indian medicine. Also, if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends and subscribe to our channel. I will see you with the next video.